Hello, everyone. My name is Molly Halsey, and I will be your host today for our webinar, New Enhancement for Security and Usability in EDB 13. I'm joined by Mark Linster, our Chief Technology Officer, and Sebastian Manum, Principal Product Manager. Now, before we get started, I just want to go through a few housekeeping items. This presentation is being recorded. We will be sharing the recording along with the slides after the broadcast. Can we hit the next slide, please? The lines are currently muted. If you have a question, please feel free to submit it in the question panel. Today's session is scheduled for 1 hour. We expect the presentation to last most of our time today, and we will allot any extra time for Q&A. If we do not have time to address all questions, we will follow up afterwards with any attendee whose question was not answered. Now, without further ado, I give it over to Mark.
All right, thank you, Molly. So today, as Molly said, my colleague Sebastian Manum and we will present, what's new in EDB Postgres and the tools. We'll walk through, what are the highlights, and then we'll give you some of the deeper dive in databases and tools. But again, we'd encourage you to also read the release notes because, in an hour, we can't cover everything. And there may be very important things that are hidden deep in the details and not visible that in our webinar here. Okay, so I'll spend a brief amount of time, promise not a whole lot, on who is EDB, but it's important that you all understand who we are and why we're making these statements and who you're working with. And again, at the same time, remember to put your questions into the Q&A so that we can address them afterwards. So EDB has acquired Second Quadrant in September, so that's 2 months ago. Before that, I could say that we were already the largest Postgres company in the world, and now we are truly the largest Postgres company in the world. We have more expertise and more contributors to Postgres, I think, than any other company, and we're a key driver for the innovation in Postgres. So when we're talking about expertise here, you may not know the whole historical context, but EDB and Second Quadrant have been working on Postgres for many, many years. EDB since 2004, Second Quadrant since 2007. We've contributed a lot to the open source side of Postgres. So things like materialized views or heap-only tuples or serializable parallel queries or even parallel queries. And really important from the Second Quadrant side, hot standby and logical replication. That's really something that the Second Quadrant team has driven. So our joint teams have been heavily invested in providing open source capabilities for Postgres. At the same time, we've been working a lot with very large customers to drive Postgres towards the type of enterprise solution that our customers want. And that's documented in the Gartner Magic Quadrant, where we've been in for 7 years since the Gartner Magic Quadrant they started republishing it in, I think, 2013. And it shows clearly that they, based on the interviews with large customers, are convinced that we have the completeness of vision and the ability to execute that is important. Now, I'll point out one more important thing on this slide, and that is what is not on this slide. What is not on this slide is any other open source relational database. They're all gone in the Magic Quadrant. If you look back in the history, there were other ones in there. Today, EDB Postgres is the only one that's left, and that's a clear endorsement from Gartner's side of Postgres, of EDB, and of open source. So going forward here today, as I said, we have more Postgres experts on board than I think any other company. Over 300 technologists, 26 Postgres community contributors and committers. And for anybody who's active in Postgres, these faces and names should really, truly ring a bell. Mike Stonebreaker, the father of Postgres, who's invented the concept over 25 years ago, the concept of a object relational database over 25 years ago when he was at Berkeley. He is an advisor to EDB today. And then Bruce Momgen, co-founder of the Postgres community, has been with EDB for a long time, drives this forward. Peter and Robert as architects and leaders of the development focused on Postgres, both the open source and the closed source version. And then Simon Riggs, the former CEO of Second Quadrant, now has joined us as a Postgres fellow. So it's important for everybody to understand we have real depth in Postgres and a great bench globally to work with our customers.
Alrighty, so I think before we jump in today, we have a quick poll that we wanted to get out. So I'm launching it now. The poll today is, which version of Postgres are you using today? You have multiple choice options if you're using more than one. The options are EDB Postgres Advanced Server 12, PostgreSQL 12, EDB Postgres Advanced Server 11, PostgreSQL 11, EDB Postgres Advanced Server 10, PostgreSQL 10, EDB Postgres Advanced Server 9.6, PostgreSQL 9.6, or EDB Postgres Advanced Server 9.5, or PostgreSQL 9.5. We've already had 50% of the audience answer. We'll give it just another 2 seconds for anyone else who wants to get in a quick answer. And here are the results.
All right, that is amazing. I mean, let me say it's great to see that by far the majority of the audience is on recent releases of Postgres. That's always important for us, right? Because we want people to take advantage of the performance enhancements, the security enhancements, and the new features. So the fact that I'm seeing a total of like 50% that are using Postgres, the Postgres 12 version, and only a very small set still on the older versions. So 9.5, you really have to get off because end of life is looming. And 9.6, I mean, it's a good version, but I would really suggest consider moving on because the performance enhancements, again, have been very significant. So it's going to be worth it. Sebastian, you as a product manager, you want to chime in on this?
No, I think it's very good to see that we have so little presence on 9.5. And as you mentioned, the end of life of 9.5 is nearing. So you really need to move. But there's little presence on 9.5 and on 9.6, actually. So I think that is very good. Even on 10, there's little presence. So I think we have a group of people that are really looking at the newer versions of Postgres and EDB Postgres Advanced Server, and that is very good. What I'm excited about is to hear about people that are also running PostgreSQL 13 already, which is an option, of course. But let's chime in on that later.
We should have put that into the poll. That is absolutely correct oversight on our side. Okay. Let's move forward. Okay, so let's go back to the agenda. First, I'll just spend a few minutes on why the tools. I mean, what are they, and why should you consider them? And this is really, again, not to toot our marketing horn, but it's really to give everybody pause for thought who's not using any tools, whether they're ours or some other open source tools. There are really good reasons to put these tools around Postgres because you'll get a lot more mileage out of them. So the first thing is, I mean, we from EDB obviously pride ourselves to have a complete portfolio of databases, tools, supports, and services. And I'm not going to go through everything here, but many of our customers work with PostgreSQL, so the open source version of Postgres, which is really, really good. And then I would say about 2/3 of our customers use EDB Postgres Advanced Server. The reason they do that, and I'll get into that in a little bit more detail, is the native Oracle compatibility, improved security mechanisms such as auditing and data redaction, or password profiles, and a few other enterprise capabilities that really make Postgres more usable in the enterprise, things that an Oracle DBA may expect to have, like a resource governor, that are not available in standard Postgres, but the DBA will look for them. So those are things that we've added to Postgres Advanced Server. And then
SQL Protect is another interesting one. SQL Protect is another one to add.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Sebastian, maybe just spend a minute on what is SQL Protect.